Hey, what's up, everybody? This is D back again with MKD58 Media. I got another movie review for you guys, and this movie review is going to be for the 2012 crime drama film Killing Them Softly. All right, now Killing Them Softly. This stars talented cast: Brad Pitt, James Gandolfini, Richard Jenkins, Ray Liotta, Ben Mendelsohn, Scoot McNairy is in this. Other folks are in this as well. Just a really, really talented cast. Just kind of following that tradition of good mobster movies having a lot of highly talented actors in it. I like this movie. This is a movie that I remember when it came out. I remember, when kind of everybody was going on their press run for the movie. It had a little bit of kind of hype. There was a little bit of energy behind the film, but I never saw it. Never got around to seeing it, but finally watched it the other night, and I liked this movie. This is a bit of a slow burn. It's very much a dialogue driven film, as actually a lot of mob movies tend to be, just because there's a lot of kind of intrigue and things like that between the different gangsters and criminals and things like that. But this is a very dialogue driven movie. There's obviously some moments of intense kind of situations and violence and things like that you would expect from a gangster movie, but this movie isn't necessarily driven so much by the violence, at least not the violence that you do see. It is kind of driven by the expectation of violence and driven by the fear of violence that some of the characters might have, driven by the threat of violence that some of the characters make. So in that sense, the movie is kind of driven by violence, but from a visual perspective, you don't really just see a whole lot of blood and guts and gore and things like that. A few blasts, gun blasts, a shotgun blast, a couple shotgun blasts that are pretty intense. Guys getting shot in the head with pistols, things like that, but nothing that's just too crazy, especially if you've seen some of the movies that I've seen. Violence wise, this isn't too crazy, but like I said, very dialogue driven, very actor driven. My favorite moments in this movie are basically conversations. The conversations between James Gandolfini's character and Brad Pitt's character were very kind of intriguing and entertaining from a dialogue perspective. Conversations with Brad Pitt's character and Richard Jenkins' character. Even kind of observing how Scoot McNairy and Ben Mendelsohn, some of their interactions, those two characters were very just annoying. Just kind of your almost stereotypical just street punk junkies that are like, you send them to do a job and they're going to do it in the most goofy way possible. I mean, these guys were wearing dishwashing gloves to a robbery because those were for whatever reason, I don't remember what the reason was, but those were the only gloves they could get a hold of. So they're sitting up here robbing a card game full of hardened criminals, and they're up there with yellow ass dishwashing gloves. It's just some, just two fuck ups, basically two fuck ups. But even their kind of interactions and seeing their thought processes, or lack of a thought process in Ben Mendelsohn's case, but just seeing how they interacted was interesting to me. So this is very much a movie for observing actors act, if that makes sense, okay? But I enjoyed this movie. What this movie is about, I'm saying all this without ever touching on the plot. Simplified version of the plot is Ray Liotta, one of his card games gets robbed. And the intent of the robbery is, of course, get the money or whatever, but, kind of frame in a way, let Ray Liotta take the blame for robbing his own card game, because in the past he's robbed his own card game and eventually admitted to that. So it makes it easy for people to kind of look at him as the culprit of robbing his own card game once these two punks rob the card game. And Ray Liotta's boss sends Brad Pitt, who is a hitman / enforcer type character, to take care of the situation, take care of the folks that robbed the card game, and take care of the folks that allowed it to happen, so to speak, or are thought to have allowed it to happen. So yeah, and that's all I'll really say about the plot. But just say this was a interesting mob movie. This is not a, I wouldn't put it in the upper echelon of kind of crime mobster dramas, but it's to me, I'd say it's underrated when I consider how little people talk about it. At least in present times, you know, when people kind of talk about the mobster films of the past and things like that. This doesn't get brought up too often. My score for Killing Them Softly, I'm gonna go 7.5 out of 10. I feel this is a good movie and definitely worth a watch. I would for sure suggest it to anybody that's into the mobster crime, you know, crime underworld, criminal underworld type films. I would definitely suggest it if you haven't seen it. If you're a fan of, you know, name all the movies, Casino, Goodfellas, The Departed, you know, all that type of stuff. If you're a fan of that type of stuff, I think there's going to be some stuff in this movie that you'll be able to appreciate. But like I said, it's definitely a slow burn. This is nowhere near in this kind of lane of, say, The Departed, which to me, The Departed was very kind of a little bit more high octane, if that makes sense, compared to Killing Them Softly. The Departed was just very kind of hard hitting, kind of non-stop, and it wasn't an action movie, but in terms of just how much there was to kind of absorb, it was like an action movie in a way. There was just a lot kind of going on. Jack Nicholson is chewing up the scenery. Other guys are chewing up the scenery. Alec Baldwin is chewing up scenery. Lots of guys just chewing up scenery. It was another very dialogue-driven movie, but still just a little bit more of a kind of, like I said, action-packed without being an action movie. Just very kind of action-packed mobster film. Just a lot going on compared to Killing Them Softly. I much prefer The Departed as a movie, but Killing Them Softly to me is underrated. So I'm gonna leave this review there. Killing Them Softly, 7.5 out of 10 for this film. For sure recommend it to fans of mobster films, fans of watching actors act. If you were somebody who kind of got a kick out of, if you remember the 1995 movie Heat, if you were somebody who got a kick out of Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, their exchanges, their dialogue exchanges, scene when they sat down at the table, even though little background trivia on that, they weren't actually together in that scene. But the scene in Heat when Robert De Niro and Al Pacino are sitting at the table talking to each other, having their conversation. And then even, at the end of the movie when they have, the finale of it, when they have their kind of final clash, where, Al Pacino shoots Robert De Niro and whatnot, and then they kind of shake hands, and which was kind of a powerful scene. If you were a fan of some of that stuff from Heat, you're going to be able to appreciate some of the dialogue things going on in Killing Them Softly. All right, so once again, I will leave this here. Thank you for watching. More reviews coming for sure. I will catch you on the next go round.